Welcome to the Along the Gravel Road podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea Barona. Today's guest is Khoi Nguyen. Khoi is a serial hobbyist and a creator led by purpose and his desire to inspire. With his foot on the gas, he continues to break past the shackles of his self-limiting beliefs in order to usher a new age of creative pursuits. It is through this effort he has found purpose in using his gifts as a creative to inspire, heal, and change the world and lives around him. Grow, I Dare You is one of his latest efforts, led by his internal mission to inspire others along their journey of self-discovery and transformation through creative content. Beyond his personal and creative pursuits, Khoi has worked as a storyteller, content creator, and producer at 368. Welcome, Khoi. I'm really excited to have this conversation. I think you and I both share this idea of how creativity is such a big part of our lives, right, and has especially, I know for me personally, become a bigger part of my journey. And then, of course, with the nonprofit, it's now become this sort of foundation that we're able to talk about mental health through this catalyst for being able to talk about it in safe spaces. And so when I saw you sharing some of your experiences and sharing some of just a little piece of yourself and really honing in on this idea of creativity and the way that it helps us move through life, I just knew that we had to have this conversation and that I wanted you to be a part of some of the things that we're doing. So I'm really excited to have you here. And to just kick us off, tell us a little bit about yourself and the things that you really want to touch on today.
Okay. So professionally, I'm currently a content creator, producer right now for an agency I work at, and 368, just plugging this in right there. But beyond what I do professionally, outside of it, it's also a passion. I've always been into video, but it hasn't been my vehicle of self-discovery per se. Creativity has always been a muscle that I'm exercising. It's been a way I've been able to just learn more about myself, but also discover things that I didn't know were there. And if there's one thing I feel like I want to do in this lifetime is to help others cultivate themselves inward so they can better express themselves outward. And I think that's a strong thing to live by, because we have some of our greatest works through understanding who we are and also believing in what we can do. And even though we don't have everything in the moment that we feel like we should have, showing up as ourselves is one of the best things we can do, because it's embracing that uncertainty and kind of going against that negative thought loop that we have of oh, I'm not good enough, that need for perfection. I realized I just went off and not really told anything about myself, but beyond creating, I dive into a lot of creative hobbies. I love to perform. I love to dance. And that has been a way to just discover more of myself and who I am on the outward, the extroversion part of myself.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm an ambivert. But yeah, I delve into a lot of creativity and I find a lot of healing, but also discovery through that. And yeah, my mission is to empower other creatives and just humans and be a part of their journey and offer any inspiration or any way I can help transform you who you are and inspire people.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. And a big part of why I was this is going to be really great for specifically for or particularly for our audience with this podcast being a part of the You Aren't Alone project, the nonprofit, is that in so many ways, we talk with a lot of creatives, right? And so creatives is however you define it. To say that a creative is an artist, yes, an artist is a creative, but it's not, they don't necessarily need to, you don't need to be a professional artist to be creative. We can all be creatives in different ways. And what's been really special about the way that the nonprofit has evolved is that growing from being a live art event originally, we've now built and cultivated this network of creatives, and the unique challenges I think that people face and struggle with in the artistic and creative space is a lot of this idea of, you mentioned perfectionism, and this idea that to be a creative, you have to create something perfect, or you have to create something that in some way people are going to judge, And I think, and then there's also to that intersection with mental health and creativity, is that it can be a powerful tool for healing. It can also sometimes, I think I've heard a lot of artists say that they're afraid to heal because that darkness, that pain is part of their art. So there's just all these layers of being a creative, of tapping into that creative energy, of finding inspiration, of the pressures of trying to do that as a career, or whatever that looks like for somebody. That it has been a really great, like I had said, like this gateway for people to then be able to talk about mental health and well-being and the way they struggle or manage or navigate that. And so to have you be able to share some of your experiences in that space, I think will definitely resonate with a lot of people, and especially the way you've been able to now sort of switch that flip. Wow.
Switch that, flip that
Flip
switch.
that switch to say, while sometimes there's this pressure and creativity, you can actually turn that into creativity as the tool for self-exploration. You can use the creativity in a different way and take that pressure off of yourself. And so I'm excited to hear about how you've done that in your own life, and maybe what it took to get there. I imagine that didn't happen overnight, that all of a sudden you knew that this was the way to do it. So can you talk a little bit about that, about what your experience has been and how you've gotten here?
Okay, so basically my journey as like a creative and whatnot, right?
Yeah, and about how you found a way to now like looking at it the way you do. I think it's a unique way to look at creativity, and I think I imagine it didn't, like I said, I imagine that it wasn't always like this for you, and this easy, clear sort of vision.
Yeah. Okay. So I come from like a repressed Asian household. It was very quiet, and I would say shy. And I don't think creativity was something that was really like pushed for. It's more like think of like the practical things to do. So I kind of threw away my dream of being like a cartoonist and a video game designer pretty quickly. And even though I threw those dreams away in a way, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do, right? But I was always like drawing, just doodling and whatnot, because I always had a lot of ideas. I just wanted to explore them. I used to make videos on YouTube and whatnot, and it was just a way to express myself. I didn't view it that way. It was just something that was fun, and that's something I'm realizing more in my life right now, is that through the process of creativity, I always feel that pressure that it needs to be good, like you said, right? It's always being judged, when in reality, I'm the one that's probably judging it the hardest. But I'm also not having fun with it. And when I'm not having fun with creativity, that's when I feel like I am not completely into myself, or I am not allowing myself the joyful experience of the act of creativity, right? Because I feel like creativity is a way that is like expression is like our nutrition as creatives. We need to share our work. You don't need to, but it's nice to.
Yeah.
Because it can help somebody, right? But I think one of my biggest moments of creativity and shaping the way I look at it was when I was like, you know what? I want to go dance. I want to go perform on stage. Granted, I was a very like shy, introverted person, but I knew I wanted to do this. So after high school, I wasn't really creative during high school, at least I would think. In college, I joined an organization. Shout out VSA LSU. Thank you for giving me the platform to perform, but also express myself. And I just started dancing. And little did I know, this really helped me with my body confidence, because I've been still am like a very thin, small framed person. And I think that was something that really haunted me for a while, because of like the idea that I needed to be like bigger and stuff, since I'm a guy. But in a way, like dancing just helped me kind of like be more in tune with my body, how it worked and how it looked, and just develop that body confidence. And just like it felt so free to not feel like I had to look a certain way. More so, it was the power and expression through my movements. And I think I didn't see dance like that as first until like close to when I graduated. So this was like kind of fresh, but also found through fashion, right? I feel like in a way, creativity is through the clothes we wear,
Absolutely.
right? So that was like a way that also helped me become more comfortable with my body, despite what I thought about it growing up. So it kind of helped me kind of reprogram my thinking of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not to say that I don't want to like gain a little bit of weight, right? But at the same time, it's like I know who I am and who I am in this body, and it doesn't define me, but it's just like my, how I say it, not a vessel. I'm not sure how to put it into words, but it's
Yeah.
like it's who I am right now and like how I express myself. Like my soul, my spirit is separate from this physical body, but it just so happens I'm here.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is what it is
this is
right
what
now.
it is. But beyond that journey of like dance and performing, I recently came to more of a higher creative confidence. And I think it's because I found like a community of people
Mm.
that I wanted to get as good as, but at the same time develop my own style, right?
Yeah.
And I had people that were like better than me, so I was like, I continue to learn from them. But
Mhm.
they're also very encouraging in the fact that, wow, Khoi, you have your own style. You keep working at it, you'll develop this, yada yada yada. But I think community was such a big part of creativity that maybe we don't talk about enough. It's just having like-minded people that maybe not exactly what you want to do, but dive into the artistic mediums and creativity as a whole to help you expand your perspective on the art itself, right? Um, but to link it back, performing for, I guess, body positivity through that
Yeah.
creation, community as a form of connection for creativity, and to where I'm now with like creating. I do content and whatnot. I think the stuff that I do now in terms of creativity is more aligned with who I am and what I value in
Yeah.
life. You know, I value being that mentor, that person that I wish I had for other people, and that's goes back to that mission I talked about, like helping others cultivate themselves inward so they could better express themselves outward, right? So I feel like I've always been repressed in that way. So coming into it now and seeing many other people that, you know, that are not aware that they could do this inner work to empower their creativity,
Mhm.
that it could be a source from within. And I know like creativity can be sourced from pain, our desires, but it's can be sourced from like by understanding who we are at the core
Mhm.
first, and why is it the way that we think the way we do, you know, the narratives, the stories that we have, and we all have a story to tell,
Yeah.
right? But I'm pretty sure I answered your question.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean there's more about that, but I think that's the best I can explain it right at this current moment.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think and it really like, and this is the first time you shared with me at least about this idea of dance and the way that it really helped you start to learn, not just learn about your body, but start to honor it and like really, you know, connect with it in a different way. And I think that's something we probably don't talk about enough, is the way in which these creative outlets, and to, because creatives, right, as a creative, it, the whole like what creating is us, we are physically creating something. And a lot of times as an artist or a creative, you're using, you know, you're using your physical body to do that. And that's not the same as some of the other things that we can do to this is actually like, this is it's a hard topic to talk about, because it's like it's not so like tangible, you know. But I think this idea of the way that we use our bodies and our beings to like create, is, it can be really powerful and can have all of these effects. And the one, you know, to share that was an experience that you had. You didn't go into it to try and better, like, you didn't say, I'm gonna dance because I want to be, you know, have more of a connection with my body and more acceptance with my body. You did it because somewhere inside of you, you knew that this is something that you were drawn to and pulled to. And in that process, you learned this about yourself. You grew in this about yourself. And I think that's what's so special about tapping into creativity is the things that come from it that we can't plan for, that we can't, and we're driven by a plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what for me is like so special about creativity and why I've like really tried to lean into it. But there's a lot of barriers to that, right? Especially this idea that we have to have an end goal in mind to work towards. And creativity sort of flips that on its head a little bit and says, it's really about this process, and the end goal, you don't actually know it, or it's not what you thought it was going to be. So what have you found that some of those barriers are, either for yourself personally, you've seen with being able to be around this community of other creatives?
And like you said about like the planning, we often get in our head, and I realized within myself, like, I have no problem coming up with ideas, but it's like the execution of them, right? It's picking one idea to work on, right? And I think it's easier to live in the dream or the fantasy of ideas rather than trying to bring it into reality. I think that's a barrier I come across, is like picking that one idea, because I honestly think I have a lot of great ideas, but I can't really prove that to myself unless I really try creating these ideas. And I heard something of like, you can't plan your next masterpiece, right?
Yeah.
But in a way, like, to expand that, you are a master to the piece you're making. Only you can create that. And I think a barrier is also like that perfectionism we mentioned, right? And it's just like, how do we adopt like imperfectionism, like that compassion to experiment and to just have fun, treat things as like a playground, and then you have something come out of it that we don't plan. And maybe I could phrase that better, but we just can't plan creativity sometimes. I think going back to dance, I don't really do choreographies. I just do freestyles because it challenges me to just think while I'm on stage. Or not even think. I just have to feel it with my body. Because like creativity is like part thinking, but it's also feeling as well. And to your point about saying like honoring, I love the way you mentioned about how like it's like an honoring to your body. In a way, it's like creativity itself is like an honor to your spirit, your soul as a creative. And when I went to dance, like I wanted to impress girls, like flat out. Straight. I have never admitted that or told anyone, but that was what it was. But it was through that it became more of an art and something I truly appreciated. It became less about impressing someone's like, what can I do on this stage now? Like what can I do? Like, because if you look at all my videos, I was like stiff as like a robot, But I'm a lot better now, and I have still so much to learn. But it's like, it's the fact that I could feel confident in my body and myself as a creative, but at the same time, I could still be challenged. I went to a dance class, Hip Hop X, and I am not trained like at all. So like I learned all this terminology. It was like I was starting anew again. I think it's really fresh sometimes to start as if you don't know anything. And that's also a barrier that came to mind, was that as a creator, I feel like I'm attracted to so many types of ways to create. And it's hard to settle on one. And I'd rather not be someone that's like spreading myself too thin on things. But how can I hone in on something and really create something that I'm proud of, that I put a lot of blood, sweat, tears in? Because I feel like I'm diving into so many things, which allows me to understand like the language of creativity. I've done a lot of graphic design, video editing, performing, and just I'm starting to come to a point where I'm like, I need to have better focus. And I think that can be hard as a creative. Maybe it's ADHD, but like having that focus as a creative and honing your craft. I'm not saying like you have to like settle into one type of creativity, form of creativity forever. I feel like in this day and age, you need to be able to have a lot of like multiple disciplinary, you know what I'm saying? Like, like you need to be like, I feel like it's good to be well-rounded. Because if you just did like painting, for example, that's a great skill to hone on. I suck at painting.
Me too.
But like, you train yourself to think in a certain way, and that's applicable in many other areas of your life that you may not even realize. You know, like being a poet, you know, you might see life differently. You might see life through a poetic lens. Like this light as it shines on my face, it's like I'm not gonna be able to feel this light or see this light or be in front of you forever, you know? It's this human experience. That's just an example. But like um the barriers of creativity often come within the self-limiting beliefs you have in yourself. And that's why I'm really big on like the inner work that you have to do to better express yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I there were so many things about that, about like talking through these barriers. You start to recognize that when you are able to sort of overcome them, or even if they're still there, but something you said, that being like when you talking about being a poet and you sort of describe this experience you're in right now, what a beautiful practice of being present, of being mindful, right? And that's creativity, to be able to be present in a moment and feel like all the things around you. And it's sort of is like it's getting to know yourself. It's like becoming more in tune with who you are. And that's part of the creative process. And that does mean having to be vulnerable and having to recognize, instead of just push away emotions that we often do, it's instead of pushing those away, it's letting them be what they are. And that's a very difficult thing to do. So I think there's a lot of ways in which the things that it takes to really hone in your creativity or allow your creativity to be what it is also sort of mirrors what it looks like to allow yourself to be, you know, who you are, and to allow all the messiness, I think, that we also are, you know, that is a part of us, to surface and be. Because when you push all of that aside, sometimes you end up pushing those creative pieces of you aside, those you know, the pieces that kind of make you that allow you to do some of this work. And I'm actually reading a book that Adrian, who you know is a friend of both of ours.
Adrian.
Thank you, Adrian. And this book I've already recommended people. It's called The Artist's Way.
I didn't get to that. I have it. It's still wrapped.
Yeah, and I've only read the intro chapters. But one thing it said, the way it talks about, and it talks about it from more of like I think professional artists, but it can be applicable for any creative. And it talks about taking your creative self on dates. Like it talks about it in a way where this creative side of you can look at and you can talk to. And it's a really beautiful way of looking at it, because it's often a part of all of us, but we don't recognize it, or we push it aside, or we say it's not good enough. You know, all these things that we tell ourselves about these pieces and parts of us. But to separate it from ourselves and sit with it across from it at a table, and just be present with it is a really like powerful human experience that can open ourselves up to things. So I haven't done it yet, but I really do enjoy the way that this book talks about our creative selves, and it's interesting. So what as you go through this process, as you start to really hone in on your creativity and take this journey of self-discovery, what are some of the things that you've learned about yourself throughout this? You talked a little bit about sort of the beginning, and as you're moving to this next phase of what it looks like to be able to give back to other people in this space. What have you learned about yourself in this process?
I feel like I learned how to be more confident in my ideas and who I am as a person. I think that directly affects creativity, you know? If you come from a very gloomy place and like a very, what's that word I'm looking for? Like you don't believe in yourself that much, you know? I think that weakens your creative muscle. Like you said, it's something that, you know, I never thought of it as like a way we date ourselves in creativity. I never thought of like sitting across or like kind of thinking, how do I put it? Like giving yourselves like an activity, to frame an activity like that, I think that gives you more intention in a way that is creativity in its way, creating a space for yourself as a creative. Like I might have to go do that.
Yeah.
But it also brought the idea of bringing in community again. Because
Mm-hmm.
while I've met a lot of people like through dance and whatnot, I feel like I'm still not tapped in creatively with my community or the people that I've yet to find.
Yeah.
I'm very blessed to have like a great circle of friends, but I don't, I haven't got out of my comfort zone a way to meet other creatives that they don't have to be doing exactly what I'm doing, but like that I could share these passions with.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that community brings connection, right? But also that creative accountability in a way,
Mm.
right? I think that's something I recently talked to with my friend Victoria. Um, we're talking about how like we don't know many other people that are into creativity and have like the same aspirations, like, with community, but also growing
Mm.
as people. Um, and I think right now where I'm in journey is like I'm realizing that with the values that I have and what I feel like my mission or purpose currently is that I feel like I've been blessed with a lot of creative gifts. How can I use that? How can I be a blessing to those people, right? What's that? This is a quote that I heard is like, if you're blessed, then be a blessing, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I have a lot of thoughts to share that I am uncovering within myself. And maybe I'm going all over the place right now, but
No, you're not.
I feel like I am asking myself a lot of questions
Mm.
rather than constantly trying to find answers. We're always trying to find answers, but I feel like we get quality answers by asking ourselves quality questions,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's a big part about self discovery is that we're on a quest, but it's the questions we ask. It's how we're able to uncover who we are, but the work that we can make and actualizing that potential of us as humans and creatives. And I feel like I am very existentially challenged, so that's why I do this a lot now.
Yeah.
But it's helped me grow in so much to understanding, like what I want to do with this. I don't want to just make stuff and make people be like, wow, that's so cool. No, I want people to take away something from whatever I'm creating, being like, I could do this, right? That's living proof.
Yeah.
Or maybe I could be that person along their journey to be like, oh, I'm so glad I heard it in this way because I can actually apply this for myself.
Yeah.
Like discovering that inner genius that we have. It's not an overnight thing, but over many nights, right?
Yeah.
And I think in this journey right now, I'm more so becoming in tune with just like defining my values. I think that's the biggest thing. My values as a person directly affects how I create.
Mm.
And we may be creating for different reasons. Like
Yeah.
I create for the sake of not only expressing myself, but at the same time encouraging others to express themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how that looks like for people that create, like, let's say music videos, like commercial stuff. I'm sure there's an element of like something inward,
Yeah.
but I guess like that's like a more professional sense that I'm not really in tune with,
Mm.
so I can't really speak on that. But creating for the sake of discovery is a big thing. But I realized this on the way here is that there is self discovery through creativity, but there's also self recovery through creativity.
Yeah.
It's that healing, right?
Yeah.
Is that they say we should tap into our inner child to see what it wants to do because sometimes we kind of repress it because growing up, being an adult, we put that child away and it's like gonna constantly ask like, hey, let me out, I want to play,
Mhm.
and we have to honor that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like that future self. We think about our inner child, but what is that future self that we envision ourselves to be, right? And are we loyal to our craft? Are we committing to the artistry that we are doing? Like the quest that we are embarking on. How committed are we? Like
Mm-hmm.
discipline is one thing, but I think in that book it talks about how you need enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Like you need that element of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, how can I create a process for myself to have more fun with what I do? Because right now I feel like I always have to like just get better and better. And like I always want to be getting better. I love
course.
learning. But how do I have that contentment may not be the word, but how do I create that sense of like I am progressing, but I'm also having fun while doing it? Because the goal is not always the outcome, right?
Mhm.
It's doing the thing. It's creating the thing.
Exactly.
And I am so tied to what I think it should look like sometimes. It just sucks the fun out.
It does. Yeah, it can take away from the actual intended purpose of it. And then you're stuck, you're back at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And you keep
no true
going
progress.
through this, this cycle of this. And when really to be able to let go of that can can actually get you a lot further in a lot of ways. And you made this distinction between this idea of creativity as a profession and creativity for personal self-discovery. And I think that's a big thing, because for so many people who are in a creative field, it can or sometimes seem like, oh well, I've now turned this thing about myself into a monetary gain, so I must be succeeding in some way.
Yeah.
But a lot of times that, well, it's just not, I don't think it's the same thing as exploring your creativity for yourself. When you're doing it for other people, when you're doing it for external factors, it loses some of its value for you personally. But looking at it the way you do, and to be able to say, I am driven, or my creativity is driven by my values, that's huge. Because if you can do that, then you are, in a sense, forced to determine your values.
Yeah.
But it also makes it fun, because I think setting our own values can sound very serious, and like it can sound like a lot of pressure, and it can sound like something that I don't know. It doesn't sound fun. But if you can do it in a way that feeds your creativity and feeds this journey of self-discovery, knowing your values, I mean, and that being your guide through a creative lens, can imagine the things you can create or do or build or inspire, change with that. That was like, that actually had me thinking, like going back and starting to like reevaluate some of the things that I do as even just a creative outlet, and thinking of them in a different way, to where, so a lot of times I'm like, I'll be like, oh, well, I'm going to paint to paint. And that's okay. That's actually a great exercise, to paint. But then I get so caught up, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. This doesn't look good. And a lot of times it doesn't. But it's because I had no purpose. And I'm a purpose-driven person. And I know this about myself. And so to reframe that, instead of saying, oh, I'm just not good at painting, to say, oh, I know I just need a purpose, and I can create that for myself. And then going through that process and seeing what comes of it, I think could actually be a really interesting exercise.
Yeah, painting with purpose.
Painting with purpose, yes.
EWP, baby.
I love it. I love like a lot of the like I'm getting inspired. I'm getting inspired just by hearing about your experience and your journey, and how you've moved through this. And I'm excited because you're going to be sharing a little something with our community as well, which you talked about community, and that was something I fought against a little bit, is the nonprofit community of a mental health nonprofit being just for creatives. I worried. It was like, no, I'm not an artist. I'm not an expert in the art space. We can't be an art organization with me leading it. But I know mental health, so I just kept pushing it away. I was like, nope, not art, mental health. But this incredible community of people kept showing up to the things that we were doing, and the topic of creativity and exploring the world from a creative lens kept coming through and being sort of the source of how we were able to build these safe spaces where people felt comfortable talking and opening up. So much so that I started to recognize that it wasn't that I started to see it for what it was, which was it's not an organization for experts in art. It's an organization for people to use creativity to help them navigate the world. And when I let go of all of those, like all of this whatever in the back of my head telling me what it should be, and started to listen and to the community that was interacting with the things we were doing. And that's what they wanted. They wanted to be around people who had shared experiences and shared creative journeys. And that allowed them to be more open about their own. And it was like this idea of building that, and now it exists. And
Yeah.
you being able to now come and talk to this community, and also now be a part of this community, because you are now. You talked about being a part of this artistic community, or this creative community. This is a community that you're very much now part of. But I think being able to do these like retreats and things are gonna make that feel more tangible, because a thing like the live art event can feel a little bit separate. And so that I'm hoping we can do more of that. But you're going to be talking at our Creative Relief Wellness Retreat. It's going to be on December 9th, and it's on the website, it's on our social media, so definitely check it out. Tell us, give us a little bit, I know you're still figuring it out, but give us a little bit of a teaser of what you're going to be talking about.
Okay. Before I give you a teaser, I wanted to go on a point of what you said about creating that space for people. You know, I was thinking to myself just now, I was like, you really have to create that space for yourself.
Yes.
It's like, we always think about, like, you know, being that safe space for someone, a community, a friend. But are we really working on creating a safe space for error, you know, but also just experimentation? And going back to what you said about being purpose driven, it's like our values help us, but it's also like a internal compass to point towards, like, what do we really want out of this? You know, you can have a purpose of just having fun for painting. You know, like, we need that expression. But like, going to, I guess, give you like a little sneak peek. I want to talk about how the journey is the art in itself. You know, like, there's art in the imperfect start, but how going on that quest or that odyssey as a creative, you know, looks different for everyone. But it's through our personal experiences that shape us as a creative, right? That's the raw materials that build who we are as a creative, and also towards the life that we want, you know? It's not all just about creativity, but creativity is so, like, intertwined with how we just live, you know? How you plan out your calendar, your schedule, you know? Creativity is almost in everything. And to your point about how, like, I don't feel like an artist, you know? I don't feel like a professional artist, but I know I can create. You know, I can create things that help people. You know, I think that's powerful enough. And it's like, I just love, like, what your organization has, like, created. Is like not a space where, like, we're all like tight, like, oh, I do this professionally. It's like, hey, this is my journey, you know? Let's talk about it. You know, I love that, you know? But yeah, that's essentially a little sneak peek, and more on that. Come join us.
I'm excited about that. Again, get your tickets. It's going to be a really good one. I have to take a second to just be like, create that safe space for yourself. That's so important. And it hadn't crossed my mind, like, to create this, to be a safe space for yourself first.
So hard.
Wow. Really, we are. I'm just going to take a second for that. I'm going to say it again. Be a safe space for yourself first. And then you can do that for others. But it has to start with you. And now I'm like thinking back, and I'm like, gosh, how many times have I given myself to somebody else or to a project or something, and didn't provide that same safety and security for myself? Like, I ignored that part, and that's why it felt so overwhelming. And that's why a lot of times it can feel like too much, because we don't take that time to do it, to be that for ourselves first.
Can I add something to that?
Please.
Even when creating a project and getting close to the end of it, you know, really trying to combat that resistance of, like, it's not good, right? It's like, we give ourselves all the reasons why it's bad. But imagine we flipped the script and believed the one reason why it's great, you know? And I feel like that's a start in building our confidence as creators, but also that safe space. And it's like, it goes back to that point of, like, cultivating yourself inward, you know? Getting close to yourself to understand what you need to do in order to create that space, right? So it's like creativity, awareness, and compassion.
Compassion, yeah. Having that self-compassion. And in that process, you know, I think it's important to note that, like, as you're getting to know yourself, as you're attempting to create this safe space for yourself, if you're running into these like painful, dark things that are happening within you that is not allowing you to be that safe space for yourself, reach out for help. Like that, you don't have to do this thing by yourself, even though it is a process of there is a big part of it is self-discovery. If you can't get there, nobody can get there alone, And so being able to say, I reached a point in trying to better understand myself that I don't know that I can navigate this alone to get to the other side of it. Reach out, because that can be really scary. And as I was even thinking about creating this safe space for myself and learning and growing within myself, I started to recognize that in doing that, in some ways, I ran into these things that I couldn't do by myself. And so I did, obviously we're sort of talking about this in through the lens of being able to do it yourself, but that's not to say that reaching out at any point and getting support and, yes, it is something you need to do for yourself, but it's not something you need to do alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You aren't alone.
You aren't alone. Oh, goodness. Okay, well, we almost got through a whole episode of me not coughing in the mic. But yeah, so you aren't alone. And I think the other thing, the other important thing that you talked about, oh, shoot. I forgot what I was going to say. It'll come to me. While it's coming to me, I'm excited about the event. I also want to give you the space to, as we kind of wrap this thing up, to share one, like if somebody didn't have the time to listen to this whole episode, or if they they happen to just catch it at the end, what would be one thing that you would want to leave people with?
Okay. I know I repeated this quite a few times, but I really believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
Before we better express ourselves, we have to cultivate ourselves inward. It's that inward or that inner world that we have that we need to kind of tend to so that we can create some of the best works we're able to in this lifetime. And through understanding ourselves and developing that understanding, compassion, we're able to better create not only for ourselves, but for the world. And I think whenever you think about who you are and becoming more aware of who you are, you kind of set yourself off to this journey, this discovery of what you can do in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I could best say.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful, and I really appreciate you sharing everything that you did with us today.
Yeah.
And the thing that came to mind that you mentioned that I think was so important, and is especially important, I think, for this episode as people are listening, this idea that creativity is everywhere. And it's in all of us, and it doesn't necessarily look like art or, like creating an expressive piece of something, or it can look like the things that we do daily, the ways we navigate the challenges that we're faced with.
This is creativity right now.
Absolutely. Yes. These conversations that we're having. So it really is. It's for everybody. This conversation, this idea of self-discovery, this idea of really learning and cultivating and self-cultivation is for everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for people to be able to hear this.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Shout out to Chelsea for having me on. Shout out to Ken over there. And just my people that kind of keep me going and help me get better and not afraid to help me improve and learn how to love and create. Shout out Kenny, Laura, Taco, my mom, my dad. Sorry, I'm gonna have to do these shout outs.
Please.
My friend Peter, my best friend Peter, and all the other amazing people I've yet to meet. And thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
I love that. You've actually, I feel like every episode now I'm going to give people the space to do that.
I cannot forget these people. Adrian, for giving me the space to grow as a creative of where I currently work at. And Jeremy, always being like a cheerleader and just supporting me in my doubtful moments, And I think it's by being in this team of great people, I'm able to best show myself as a creative. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I also want to say this speaks to this community here in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
You and I have both, I think, been lucky enough to be able to find these people that lift us up and that
Yeah.
inspire us and really give us permission, I guess, or like
Yeah.
encourage us,
Yeah.
or and give us tools and to
Absolutely.
learn and grow in this space. And that is here. That does exist here. And so I think anyone, specifically here in Baton Rouge, that might be feeling isolated or lonely
Yeah.
in that there are people in a community here that is really, really pretty special.
Yeah. And if anything, like the Creative Wellness Retreat is an opportunity for creatives who may feel like they haven't met a group of people or anyone yet, Like even though I have like this circle of people, I still want to branch myself out. So if you're a creative and you do a lot of like inner work or like you want to just learn more about yourself and people, come to this event.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm excited about it. All right. Thank you all for listening, and we'll be back.
Yep. Thank y'all. See y'all.